Okay, it's 7:30. I hope you can all hear me. I call this November 21st meeting of the Northwest Suburbs Cable Commission to order. And the first item on the agenda is is the roll call, I guess, but I've got a person here that's been taking the roll.
We're good.
And we have 14 out of 18 people here, so that is a quorum. The next thing is approval of the agenda. Is there anything that you want to change on the agenda? Anything that any member of the commission wants to change on the agenda? Is there a motion to approve what the agenda is? Okay, and there's a second by Willis. Discussion? All those in favor of what the agenda is signify by saying aye. 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 All those opposed say no or nay. The motion carries. Next, consent agenda items. There are 3 items. Does anyone wish to withdraw anything from the consent agenda to talk about it? And hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. So moved.
You got that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Non-debatable thing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Next, action items. That's under Roman numeral number 4. Item number 1. I'm assuming that Mark Miller of North Oaks isn't here right now for the presentation. Okay. So with your permission, Commission, we're going to go to number 2, approval of the investment policy.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commission members, our investment advisor kind of tipped us off, asked us a few questions at the beginning of the year saying, do you have an investment policy? And we dusted one off and we found one dated 1993. And so we decided it was time to revamp that. I reached out to many of you and got the investment policies of your cities, consulted with the League of Minnesota Cities as well as our investment advisors to craft a new investment policy. We did have our financial team at Abdo Financial Services look over it, and it was recommended for approval by our executive committee in September.
Members of the commission, anybody have a question about the investment policy that you probably slept in bed with last night? Absent that, is there a motion to approve the investment policy?
Adam Bell.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Next, we're being asked to pass a resolution approving the records retention policy.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair and Commission members, like our investment policy, it was also time to update the records retention policy. It was a little bit better. This policy was dated 2003. And so with the help of our attorney, Mike Bradley, we went through and updated this so it follows the State of Minnesota Department of Administration's City General Records Retention Schedule. We also added a retention schedule for the video recordings of this meeting, since the video recordings are not the official record, our minutes are, but we will keep the video recordings up to a year after the minutes are approved. And so with that said, we're open to questions, but we do request the adoption of Resolution 2024-01, adopting a records retention schedule.
One question, you wouldn't care if we put a semicolon between the last whereas clause and the now therefore clause instead of a period, would you?
Not at all.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments, or a motion with the semicolon? Anybody that I'm looking at? Oh, thank you, Madam Attorney. Anybody else have a second? Was there a second?
Wagner?
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. That motion carries. So now we get to Roman numeral number 4, item number 4, annual election of officers.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair and Commission, our bylaws call for an election of officers every November. The nomination committee of Jim Willis, Judy Hansen, and Beth Kramer met on October 16th to nominate this slate of officers that's on the screen to the executive committee. And I think it's worthwhile to point out, these 7 members represent 7 different cities, so great representation there. Whomever is elected will take office at the close of this meeting. So the nominated officers are Chair Bill Blonigan, Robbinsdale; Vice Chair Jim Willis, Plymouth; Secretary Daryl Sanis, Brooklyn Center; Treasurer Adam Bell, Crystal; at-large member Carol Morris, Maple Grove; at-large member Roger Bergman, Golden Valley; and at-large member Mark Schultz, Osseo. There is an opportunity for nominations to come from the floor, and if that happens, and the 2 people are up for 1 position, we will proceed to a paper vote, but otherwise the officers can be approved by voice vote.
So, anybody can nominate themselves too, I would assume. And therefore, does anybody have a motion to either nominate, I guess it's not a motion. Does anybody want to nominate either one or more of those people? You could nominate the whole slate, I guess, and then we could have a separate motion if somebody else wants to run for treasurer or chair or vice chair or something like that. So, first of all, does anybody have a motion for time purposes to nominate the entire recommended slate of people?
Chair Flanagan, I will nominate the entire slate of people.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Now, nobody be shy. If anybody wants to either nominate somebody else or themselves, are there any other nominations? Hearing none, is there, hearing none, is there any debate or comment about any of this, of the slate and who we're proposing to elect? And hearing none there, all those in favor of electing the officers indicated previously by the executive director, me as the chair, vice chair Jim Willis, secretary Daryl Sanis, treasurer Adam Bell, at-large Carol Morris, at-large Roger Bergman, and at-large Mark Schultz, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll vote aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Okay, thank you. Approval of the Cable Commission budget for 2025.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair and Commission members, you have the 2025 budget before you, and there have been a few changes since you last saw it in September. I did send out the budget portion of the packet to all of you a few Fridays ago asking for questions, and also to let you know that due to a significant drop in cable franchise revenue in the 3rd quarter, we readjusted our revenue projections. So I think the simplest way to explain this is on your screen right now. We thought we would have 3.4 million come in, and now we think it's gonna be more like 3.0 million. So that means we are not gonna hit 3.2 next year, and we have adjusted that to be 2.6 million. We saw a 4% drop in revenue between quarter 1 and 2, and a 10% drop between quarter 2 and 3 of this year. So we felt like it was best to be as transparent as possible and adjust those numbers to what we're truly expecting. The executive committee has been asking to have a long-term planning session and perhaps a stakeholder survey in the 1st quarter of the year to help guide how we adjust to this declining revenue. So you can look for more information on that coming up. That said, I'm here to answer any questions. I also have our financial partner, Julie McMackins from Abdo Financial Solutions, here to answer any questions as well. And if there are none, we recommend the budget to be approved. I did need to add that the previous budget, we thought we would only take $85,000 out of cash reserves, but with the adjusted revenue coming in, it's $691,000. If you look at previous years, we have operated taking that much out of cash reserves in the past. It's not our intention to do so, and we will definitely be adjusting to that in the next year.
Questions, Daryl?
Do we know why there was a 10% drop in the 3rd quarter? And was it because of the Minnesota Twins broadcast? Is that? Does anyone know? Was that the?
That's what's highly suspected.
Yeah,
And we also believe that there might have been a change in cable packages. So the video portion, which is the only amount that we receive any revenue on, was valued at less. Do you have any insight on this, Mike, from talking to other people?
You know, the only real way is to do a franchise fee review, so you can see exactly what revenues over the last, let's say, 3 years, what they entailed, you know, and then what changed over the last 3 years, specifically over the last quarter. So my recommendation is to periodically do franchise fee reviews so you can see what it is. It could be the Twins. I think it's probably no surprise to any of you that cable subscriptions are dropping because Comcast is moving customers to their own video programming by streaming products, and they don't consider that to be cable service. And that's an issue, and it's gonna have to be an issue that is addressed sooner than later, in my view.
Anything else?
so I guess my ultimate question is, do we think that it's gonna continue at a higher rate than the standard 2 to 3% per quarter? And as we get into 2025, do we need to monitor that and even adjust on the fly?
We will definitely be monitoring that, for sure. I'm really curious to see what the Q4 numbers will be, and that comes in the last week of January. What this budget is still like a consistent 2 to 3 drop per quarter, which is what we have seen.
Okay,
I note that on our chart, in 2011, we had 76,412 subscribers. And if you divide that by 2, you get almost exactly this 38,888 that we're at right now. I mean, just a few more subscribers in loss, and we'll be at half of what we were in 2011. Also, asking you, Mike, and it kind of comes to mind that about the packaging, would we be wise at some point to audit them, in that I see an opportunity, if I'm the cable company, to create a package of services that you give to the viewer, like putting internet in there with it, and to overvalue the internet and undervalue what we have, thus avoiding the 5% fee and the PEG charges. Is that something, have you ever known a cable company to do something like that?
Well, Chair, I've seen a lot of franchise fee reviews and a lot of franchise fee reports. I can tell you that that is an issue that's identified in the franchise fee review reports. And I'm sure it will be if one's done here.
And so, do you recall how long it is since we've done a report like that?
Not since 2018.
And when we did that, did we work out better as a result of our audit, get more money, that more than paid for the audit?
We did. I don't know exactly what that number is. Mike, do you remember?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it did pay for itself for sure. And then some.
Okay, other questions by people? Other comments by people? So, what you have asked us to do is just receive this, approve the budget. Is there a motion on the floor to approve the budget?
Not yet.
Is there a motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion about the budget other than what we've had? All those in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Now do we have a opportunity to have a report from Mark Miller of North Oaks? Okay, all right. Do you want to introduce that item, or?
Sure. This is Mark Miller. We've worked with him very closely on our investments from North Oaks Investments. And he is going to go over the investment report that is in your packet. It starts on page 23. Mr. Miller.
Okay, thank you, and good morning. Well, as you probably know,
Try to speak up just a little.
Sure.
Okay.
As you may know, the investment environment has changed quite dramatically over the last year to year and a half, where the Fed has raised interest rates, and which has been beneficial to be able to generate some additional dividend income. And now the Fed is going the other way, and we've had a couple of rate reductions, and we're anticipating a few more rate reductions within the next 6 to 8 months. And so with the report, there's two different reports. One is the portfolio appraisal report, and the other one is the income projection report. And on the portfolio appraisal report, that is just showing a list of the current holdings. And the majority of the holdings are invested in structured CDs that are FDIC insured with principal guaranteed. And then the growth of that structured note is based on, usually the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Index. And they have a variety of terms. We have kind of a ladder of maturity. Right now, we have two holdings that will be maturing in the year 2025, totaling, as far as the principal, $220,000 plus whatever interest it will gain at maturity. 2026, we have one CD of $250,000 principal plus whatever interest is added at that time. 2027, that's we have 4 CDs with a principal balance of $900,000 plus interest that will be added at that time. And then we do have one for 2028 in the amount of $200,000 and 2029 in the amount of $200,000. Up to this point, because the organization really hasn't used the account for many, many years, so the primary objective has been to preserve the principal and have some growth. Now that things are changing a little bit, I've been working closely with Shannon, and we're seeking to generate income from the portfolio. And as such, if we look at the second report, which is called Income Projection, this shows the current holdings that do generate income currently. Right now, the income that is projected over the next 12 months is about $101,000 a year. The second page kind of details that. There's 2 money market holdings that invest in 100% U.S. Treasuries for security, and those 2 combined are generating roughly $7,000 a month income. And so that income was turned on and distributed to the checking account on a monthly basis here in the last couple of months. And then there is another holding called the Blue Rock Total Income Real Estate Fund, and that generates a current yield of 7.24%, and that's paying a dividend currently of about $4,100 quarterly. As of this moment, those dividends are being reinvested, although Shannon and I are in discussions about whether or not we want to start distributing those dividends as well. So right now the distributions are $7,000 a month that's added to the income, which has been kind of nice. And as the notes mature, then Shannon and I will be working together to see whether we want to focus more on income generation to increase your revenue, or growth, or combination of both. So we are I'd say, kind of in the phase of shifting to meet the needs of the organization. And so again, as Shannon said, we're working closely to monitor that and discuss the needs. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to address those questions. Thank you.
So you talked about structured CDs.
Yes.
And could you just talk about the difference between a structured CD and traditional, I guess you would say, CD?
Yes.
I did note that you said that the structured CD was fully FDIC insured because of the way it's structured.
Yes.
But anyway, what are the other
Yeah.
differences between a structured CD and a traditional one?
Yeah, so a structured CD is usually put together by a investment firm such as, Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, et cetera. And they work in conjunction with the bank. And the bank provides the FDIC insurance and the 100% guarantee. And then the investment firm, say Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan, they will bundle a little basket of securities, and then the investment, if we just use the S&P 500, for example, they'll measure when the CD starts to the maturity. Let's just say it's a 5-year note. At the end of the maturity, they'll measure the growth of the S&P 500, and then the growth is capped at a certain point. So lately, of course, the S&P 500 has grown dramatically, so most CDs are hitting their caps. So it gives you the opportunity to participate in the growth of the market, but you don't have the downside risk. And of course, the worst case scenario on the downside is if the market went the other way and it was negative between the original investment date to the maturity date, then you would simply get your principal returned. So especially, in previous years when bank CDs were not attractive at all, these are great tools to get certain gains. In fact, we did have one CD that got called early in May, and that one, it was, I apologize for not having the details at my fingertips, but that one was I believe a 4-year CD, and it got called early within 2 years, and so in May, we realized a 12% return on that note, so that was a nice little surprise. So I hope I answered your questions. You can participate in the growth. It's limited on the upside because you have no downside risk. So yeah, so
Right.
they're wonderful vehicles to have security and growth opportunities.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks for doing that, and thank you to Shannon for doing that.
Yeah.
Other questions by people? Okay, well, that was a report, so I guess there's no action necessary.
We need to accept it.
Thank you. There is an action necessary. We are being asked to have a motion to accept the report by Mark Miller of North Oaks. Is there such a motion? Thank you. And there's a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no or nay. That motion carries. Okay, so back to, I guess we did not do the full legal update, did we? We approved the budget. We're going to number 5 here, legal and legislative update by Mike Bradley of Bradley Warner LLC.
Your favorite part of the meeting.
Thank you, yes.
Well, good morning. I have 2 legal reports in the packet. Just wanted to highlight just a couple of things. First is the American Broadband Act of 2023. It's H.R. 3557. And that is a bill at Congress that would have very negative consequences to this organization and to all of your member cities. It would preempt a lot of zoning and franchising authority. And so for any of you that have, you being member cities, for any of you that have federal lobbyists or in touch with federal lobbyists, I would encourage you to put that bill close to the top of your list as being on the alert for. It had some support last year, or the last session. And I think, given the election results, I think it's likely to see some more attention as we move forward. So definitely put that one on your to-do list.
Would the League of Minnesota Cities be
Oh, yes.
an organization that lobbies on our behalf if they think that's a good policy?
They don't think it's a good policy. They do think it's a good policy to oppose it. And I think in your legal report, I put links to the, to draft letters of opposition. So I encourage, every organization, every municipal organization out there to do that. It's something that the U.S. Conference of Mayors took up over the summer in June and passed a resolution opposing that legislation. And NATOA, which is a group that this organization belongs to, it's a national municipal telecom organization. They have put information out there in opposition. There's some other good examples of letters of opposition or letters, identifying opposition that would go to a federal congressional delegation, for example.
So we should be contacting both the League of Minnesota Cities and the National League of Cities and any other lobbyists or organizations we
Yes.
have and asking them to oppose this bill.
Yes, that is time well spent. Okay. Just a couple of updates on a couple of other FCC issues. One is the digital discrimination rules. We participated in support of digital discrimination rules at the FCC. Those rules were adopted last year and then appealed to the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals. And so it's pending there. I believe they've had oral arguments now. The other FCC issue was the reclassification of broadband service as a telecommunications service rather than an information service. So sometimes you'll hear me talk about Title I and Title II. That's what that's all about. That has been appealed to the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals. And the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals granted a stay of that order by the FCC, which is a forecast by them that the FCC order will not succeed on its merits going forward. So I think if all things stay the same, the broadband will remain a Title I information service. Oral argument was had on that, I think, last month. And then lastly, I continue to spread the good word of franchising and the need for PEG funding reforms. I was in Washington, giving a presentation to the Washington Association of Attorneys out there, and then I don't know, I think it was just last week, I was in Oklahoma City, giving a presentation to the Oklahoma Association of Municipal Attorneys. And I'll be talking to the ACM Northeast annual conference here at the beginning of December to talk about all those same issues. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions? Anybody? Okay.
Your time is stump the lawyer. It's a fun, no? Okay.
All right, that's that. Next item on the agenda is recognizing a retiring commissioner.
Yes, Vice Chair and Commissioner Judy Hansen is retiring from her job, her position on the council, and her position here on the commission. And so we would like to say thank you for spending time with us. She's been on the commission since February 2023. She's also been on the executive committee, so that's been a few extra meetings tossed in there. And so on behalf of the commission and CCX Media, I'd just like to say thank you. And your reward, maybe you could call it that, is now you get to make your 9 o'clock exercise class. Because that hasn't always been you haven't always been able to do that, but now you can. So thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Chair Blonigan, thank you for taking over here. I really appreciate your leadership, and I honestly really do appreciate your attention to details. Shannon, your leadership is just second to none. I mean, just phenomenal. And I feel like I've just only been here for like half a minute, and there's just so much talent here around this table and all those folks sitting back there, and I'm just I feel like I'm still just learning so much. So I'm still gonna keep an eye and maybe find some ways to be involved. Mike, contrary to what you said, I find your report one of the most interesting. So, and you're right, I pulled the plug on everything this year. I was 34 years as an assistant city attorney in St. Paul, and I really enjoyed that work, and on the council in Maple Grove for 9 years. But I'm really happy with the 2 new elected candidates. One of them is at the table here, Council-elect Mike Ostafi. And I really feel that Maple Grove will have some really good representation around this table with Carol Morris and Mike. So I feel good that Maple Grove will continue to be represented. And thank you for the recognition. I appreciate it, even though I've been here just a hot minute. Thank you.
You were here for a hot minute, and you did make valuable contributions during the time you were there. Being on the executive committee is an extra amount of work and requires extra reading and thinking about what we should be doing. So I personally thank you for that. I think your comments and leadership and input was very valuable. So I will miss you, and I'll be annoyed that lawyer jokes are only going to one person now.
Thank you so much.
But anyway, thank you so much. And, you know, we recognized other people that just started already. Is there anybody here that we should be recognizing for?
No, we usually do anniversaries at this meeting, and we do anniversaries in increments of 5 years, but we don't have anybody this year. So
Okay.
keep on keeping on, so we can recognize you later.
All right. There's another portion of the agenda called Other. Do we have any other from the staff? Do we have any other from any other people? Anybody else want to bring up anything? And is there then a motion to adjourn? Well, I do want to thank all the people that have served on the executive committee, people that aren't going to necessarily be coming back. I want to thank anybody that's going off of the commission. It is a lot of work. It's hard to even get here at 7:30 in the morning. And I encourage anybody that's new, anybody that's been here a while, to ask questions, make motions, and participate. You know, we never stop anybody from asking questions or participating, so get in there if you want to. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Is that a second, Aaron? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The motion carries. We're adjourned.
All right, we will start the CCX Media Board of Directors meeting.
Well, and actually, at 9:15.
And it's 8:03. So the first item is approval of the agenda. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. So we do not need a
Do
second,
not need a second.
as I recall. So, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no or nay. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. Next, we have the consent items. So we have approval of the minutes from September, receipt of the minutes from the executive committee back in May, acknowledge the receipt of minutes from both the meetings in September for the Create Action Crew, and approval of the treasurer's report. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent items.
So moved.
Thank you. Any discussion on the consent items? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no or nay. The consent items are approved. Moving down to the action items. First, we have accepting of donations.
Mr. Secretary and Board, we love to receive donations, and it is Give to the Max Day, by the way, just reminding you of that, to remember CCX Media, if you feel so inclined. This resolution before you is accepting the donations that we've received this last quarter. One came from the Osseo Maple Grove American Legion, a donation to youth sports, and the other two from two members of CREATE, Mary LaHaye and Andrea Keys. So we recommend the approval of this resolution.
All right. Any other discussion? All right. I'm looking for a motion to approve these. Yep. All right, we don't need a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no or nay. All right, motion passes, and we accept all of these donations. Next up, approval of the investment policy.
Actually, this one is the records retention policy.
Okay, sorry, I'm looking
Yep.
at the wrong one.
Yep.
Okay, so we covered this in commission meeting, so we're looking for the board of directors to approve the records retention policy. So I'll look for a motion to approve the records retention policy discussed earlier.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-05, resolution adopting a records retention schedule.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving this, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please say no or nay. The records retention policy is approved. Okay, next up, number 3 is the CCX Media annual election. So we have it up on the screen. It's also in your packet.
Mr. Secretary and Board, so our bylaws, we did change them in September, so they call for officers to serve a 2-year term. So the slate of officers on your screen would be up for a 2-year term that begins on January 1st. And so our nomination committee was Mark Schultz, Kevin Vandenberg, and Beth Kramer, and they met on October 14th to nominate these officers. We have President Mark Schultz of Osseo, Vice President Daryl Sanis from Brooklyn Center, Secretary Eric Margolis, who is our CREATE representative and also a resident of New Hope. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes. Treasurer Tim Sandvik from Robbinsdale, and at-large member Adam Bell of Crystal. There is an opportunity, just like with the commission, there's an opportunity for nominations from the floor. If the slate is unopposed, it's a voice vote. If we have 2 people for one position, we will go to a paper ballot. So the committee recommends approving this slate.
So as we did with the commission meeting, I'll look for a motion to either approve the slate or approve by position, or look for any nominations from the floor. So are there any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion to approve this slate or to approve them one by one.
I move to approve the slate as displayed.
Any discussion about that? All right. All those in favor of approving this slate of officers, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, please say no or nay. Motion carries. This election of officers has been approved. Thank you. Okay, next up is approval of CREATE rules allowing non-resident membership.
All right, Mr. Secretary and Board, this item is a change to the CCX CREATE rules that will allow a non-resident to pay for a membership to CREATE. And this is an item that was passed and approved in the CCX CREATE Action Committee. Currently, to be a member of CREATE, you need to meet one of 3 criteria. 1, you're a resident of one of our 9 cities. 2, you are producing content for a local nonprofit. Or 3, You're producing content for a city with permission of the city manager or administrator. However, we do know we have non-residents that use our facility through what I call a loophole. And that is if a resident or a current member kind of is there and signs off on their work, then they can use our facility. So we're really just hoping to close that loophole and create a pathway for membership for non-residents and also charge for that. So the added text is on your screen and it's redlined in your packet. So this would be the biggest change to the rules. And it would be on page 3 of the rules document, just saying individuals who live outside the franchise area and do not meet the above requirements are eligible to purchase a non-resident membership. Annual non-resident memberships would be $75 for individuals, $100 for families living at the same address. And of course, we would provide scholarships upon request. And I would like to ask Board Member Eric Margolis to share a few words because he has voluntarily been one of the sponsors of someone producing some really great content. Eric?
Thanks, Shannon. Yeah, so for the past year or so, there's a podcast produced here at CCX Great called Historias and Fueyas. It's a Spanish language podcast, and it was a project that was started by former board member Janina Prosser. She brought some people into the center who lived outside of the area and helped them get set up. When she stepped down from the board, it created a void that needed to be filled. And so the staff did a tremendous job, and Shannon assisted with this to try to replace them in their local access center. But the facilities available to them there aren't of the same caliber as what we have available to us, and they wanted to continue to make the trip from St. Paul here to our center to continue to produce their podcast. So I volunteered to become the producer of the show so that we can continue to do that as we worked towards this proposed language change. They have provided a letter of testimony, which Shannon has to include in the official record, thanking us for their support. Throughout the year, they had 25 guests from the Latinx community who come and tell stories about their journey immigrating into the United States and into Minnesota and being part of the community. We believe that one of the important things for not only having this content shared on CCX Media is for people to be able to own their own productions. And so this rules change would mean a lot to the producers, Anna Maribela Rivera and her husband, Lisbel. They're very excited and eager to sign up to be able to produce their own content under their own name and not need to have a existing member sponsor them. So I would encourage you to pass this resolution, and I thank you for your time.
So staff recommends approval of this rule change.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I have one. I have a question around Rule 2, Section B, where it says scholarships are available among requests. What does that look like? Do we have a scholarship program already in place for other items? Do we need to flush that particular line out?
We don't have anything set up currently, but we do have several donations that come in to create that we just kind of have earmarked for proposal. That could be a source of that, and it also could be an opportunity to go out in the community and get a sponsorship for this item.
I guess my question's around qualification for said scholarship to make sure it's fair for all people. That it's not arbitrarily, sure, person A gets one, no, person B does not, without any guidelines rather, around what that looks like.
We discussed this in committee quite a bit, and we felt like having just a pretty liberal, if somebody needs a scholarship, then they'll get one. So not going through a big paperwork process or something like that.
And we haven't really turned anybody down, I take it as well?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to accept this.
So moved.
Right, thank you. All those in favor of accepting this, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no or nay. Okay, it passes. Okay, item number 5, approval of the CCX Media budget for 2025. We discussed this earlier in the commission meeting. Any further discussion by the board? Mark?
I had to, if I may.
Yep.
I had maybe some thoughts during the commission meeting about a few of the impacts to the budget based on the franchise fees and the PEG fees. And there was some discussion in that earlier meeting about an analysis and projection of franchise fees. One thing that I, being new and struggling a little bit with, is normally we're not spending the fees that we're receiving in the same year that we're receiving them, right? I mean, the whole idea of creating a budget, it should be based on the money we already have. And so I'm trying to kind of understand that accounting principle, and I don't know where the right discussion for that is, but if we were to look at the sort of revenue stream from the commission, if we go back to 2013 and compare it to 2021, that $3.8 million is exactly the same amount of money that we have. But when I look at CCX Media, it looks completely different now than it did in 2013. And so I'm just trying to understand a little bit more about our budgeting process, that how could there be such a discrepancy? What role did cost of goods, inflation play? And also it's a little difficult when we get some North Oaks and the dollars don't add up, right? So on page 3 of the portfolio report, it says we have $3.9 million, but I can only account for $2,098,000 on this report. So it's just stuff like that that I'm not sure where the right place for those discussions are. And also, I know it's difficult to absorb these large budget changes, but it was a little surprising for me how much of a shock it was to discover that Q3 revenues were down by 10%. I would have thought that would be something that would be impacting us, further downstream than more immediate. So I guess I don't really have a question. I just comments, so.
Julie, could you share a little bit about the budget projections?
Yes, absolutely. So one thing I think that needs to be clarified is the revenue sources. So the main revenue sources for the commission and CCX are those cable franchise and PEG or access fees. There are limitations on the use of those PEG or access fees to capital related items. So those are sort of a separate bucket of revenue and are limited to, building updates, equipment updates, other large purchases, where the franchise fees are more for operations. So yes, there is, $3.8 million in cash, but some of that has to be set aside and reserved for those capital items. So we have to look at them in total yet separate. And one thing on the CCX side, it looks goofy because the commission funds all of CCX. So there is no straight revenue source for CCX, so that's all coming in just from the commission. Does that help to answer your question?
Yeah, so if I may, it was really enlightening to hear that there's some restrictions on how franchise fees can be utilized versus PEG fees, something that I was not aware of. I don't know if other members were. Is that, and maybe this is a question for Mike, but is that a statutory, is that a policy of ourselves, or is that like a regulatory constraint? Is that?
It's regulatory and it's in your cable franchise.
Okay. Okay, and so then the budget, though, it's not tying to those two separate buckets. It's tying to one whole number. It's difficult to discern what's being paid for from PEG fees versus what's being paid for from franchise fees. Why don't we have that view?
That's definitely something that we can provide in the future. Looking at that, there's a section for capital outlay or capital purchases in each of the budgets. So those would be items that are set aside to be used by those PEG fees, where the rest of operations would be utilized with those franchise fees. And we are dipping into those cash reserves.
Right, so, okay. And so I appreciate that, and I don't want to belabor this, and maybe this is something for committee later, but, I mean, it's not new, right? So why have we chosen to account for it as a whole rather than, there's really two budgets, right? We have so much money we should be tracking for capital expenditures that has its own revenue source, and the rest is all the operational stuff that can only be funded from the franchise fees themselves. So why, I guess my question maybe for committee later would be, why haven't we historically tracked it that way? Because it would seem to help us make better decisions. If we knew we only had X capital dollars, in this case, 600,000, but if that would then imply that that hit would only have applied to any of the proposed capital expenditures, yet we see cuts across everywhere else. So it's a bit, I'll use your word, goofy. And I don't really like goofy.
Yeah, and that's something that we do have available. We've just never provided it in this budget format before. So definitely something that we can work on updating and provide in the future.
Yeah, and I would add, as I've been trying to understand how it all works, like there are extensive spreadsheets that account for all of that PEG money and shows where it goes, but it's just not something that we've rolled out here,
Sure.
but we definitely could.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is just learning for me.
Sure.
Right? It sounds like for a little bit for everyone else too, so thank you. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I have a comment on the specific revenue item of Google revenue. 23 actual was 34,000. Year to date now is 15.7, and unless there's some huge jump in the fourth quarter, it'd be about 23,000. Yet we're budgeting 35,000 for next year. What would drive that 50% increase from this year? Seeing that we were budgeting 64,000 and we weren't coming close.
No, Google keeps changing the rules on us, so we're trying to stay ahead of that and trying to move the needle on that. So it's probably an optimistic 35. A few years ago, that would have been very easy to attain. It's been a little bit tougher, but we're gonna try to hit it.
And what are we doing to generate that? What is being done to increase it from this year's roughly 23?
It's really trying to figure out the algorithms and the way to make the content go farther. We don't choose the content we cover by clicks. I mean, we do not do that. But we've definitely worked to monetize our YouTube sports page, which is probably the bulk of that. Put some Google ads on our website as well. So it's all about driving the content back to our website and to our YouTube pages. So we're definitely trying to stay one step ahead of the people changing the game on us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Any questions? All right, I'm looking for a motion to accept the budget for 2025.
Move to accept the proposed 2025 budget.
Thank you. All those in favor of accepting the 2025 budget, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no or nay. Budget is accepted. All right. Item 5, information, staff reports.
Staff reports. We have very detailed staff reports in your packet, and so please read through those and see what our staff is doing. But we're just going to hit the highlights right now. And we will begin with recapping our election coverage for 2024. And before News Director Corey Bork comes and tells you kind of what we did, we wanted to show you a promo that we produced. We know there's a lot of negativity with politics, at least for most people, but since we work with local candidates, we kind of have a different picture on what that looks like. Most of the time it's people coming in just wanting to make their community a better place. They're running on their own time and on their own dime. And so we wanted to create this promo, 60-second promo, to showcase that. So take a look.
There's so much mudslinging in politics that sometimes it's hard to see the good in any of it. But here at CCX Media, we get a glimpse at a very special part of the election process that makes us think a little bit differently. We extend an invitation to every candidate on the ballot to record a statement, whether it's school board, city council, or a state legislative race. We see people who have served for years. We see people running for the first time. But in all of it, there's a civic-minded motivation by people who just want to make their community better. Sure, candidates might disagree on how to make their community better, but there's still that desire to help, that desire to serve. Before you vote, check out the local candidates on your ballot and hear what they have to say. You'll find it on ccxmedia.org.
See, doesn't that make you feel better about the election or just about the process in general? Now I'll ask Corey Bork to come to the microphone and recap our live election coverage and the weeks leading up to it. Corey?
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Again, Corey Bork, News Director here at CCX News. If you get a chance to walk around our building, I encourage you to pay close attention to our carpet, particularly the carpet leading to our news studio. You may see it's a little more worn. There's a good reason for that. We had close to 80 candidates come to record candidate statements, and it was a big lift. I can thank reporter Kevin Miller for helping with that. He helped candidates with getting comfortable with the teleprompter, trying to stay on time with their statements. It was a big lift. I'm thankful he was able to provide that service for us. And I'm also thankful for some of the responses we got. If you think about, we had one email in particular comes to mind. Someone asked, so how do you find out how to vote for school board candidates? What information can I find out about these candidates? And if you think about it, there's not really that much information out there. I mean, maybe the Sun Post, we have us, and really that's about it. So I am glad we are still able to provide that service for candidates to learn more about them. As far as election night, it was, our coverage, of course, is very different than pretty much anywhere else in the fact that we don't spend 1 second on the presidential race at all. We covered close to 40 local races, city council, school board, county commissioner, state house, and then we also interviewed about 12 winning candidates on election night and a handful the next day. Not one of them, for the first time in years, not one of them was named Bill Blonigan, so happy retirement, Bill. And the election's still not done. I see our friends over in Crystal. We have a recount. One race literally came down to one vote, and that's going to be looked at today through a recount process. So we'll have to figure out how people didn't fill in the oval properly. I don't know, but we'll find that out today. So that's election 2024 in a nutshell. Feel free to stop and grab me if you have any other questions about election, anything else, news story related. So. Anyways, thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Corey. And results didn't start coming down until 10:30 on election night. So we had reporters knocking on the doors of winning school board candidates at midnight. I think one person went to sleep on us, but it was definitely a lot of fun. All right, we have several talented people who work here, and today we're going to highlight our most recent Emmy winner, Isaac Rice, and to take you back to the big moment, we're going to show you this brief clip.
Nominees for Outstanding Director, Newscast, or Recorded Live Program. Addison Cherneau, Composite, WCCO. Isaac Rice, Director, Multi-Viewer and Track. CCX Media, Northwest Community Television. KTIV News 4, Tornadoes in Sewell. KWWL News at 6. Sioux City prepares for a blizzard and Iowa caucuses. KTIV. The regional Emmy goes to Isaac Rice, Director, Multi-Viewer and Track.
It still makes you be excited, right? You're still excited.
Semi-red, you're staying real red. Staying setting up the headsets. Done, going 3, 2, 1, go ahead. Stand by to push and stand by to change. Stand by to push and
And there's Isaac on Emmy night. The Emmys don't always let everyone speak and give an acceptance speech, so the next best thing is speaking at a board meeting at 7:30 on a Thursday morning. So Isaac, if you would come up to the microphone, I asked Isaac just to share a little bit of light on what goes into the 160 productions that we do every year, and Isaac is at the control board for many of those.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning, all. Isaac Rice, the events director and producer. As you saw, there was a clip there of a little bit what we do, so that's kind of the screen that I look at with the variety of cameras and graphics and replay signals and things like that. So with doing events, obviously we do a lot of sports. We also do graduations, concerts, parades, things like that. With the coverage, we can, be potentially at Brooklyn Center High School, or we could be at US Bank Stadium doing a state football game like we were last week. So a lot of, a lot of time and effort from the crew, setting up all those cameras, audio equipment, things like that. And it's been kind of whirlwind of doing that the last 6 years here full time. And a lot of developing graphics and developing our crew to have these shows to be able to do something like, win an Emmy. We've heard a lot of feedback over the years that our shows are on the level of network productions like Big Ten Network or, ESPN and things like that, some of their smaller shows and things like that. So that's, it's been very tremendous in the ability to come here and do that. So as you walk out, the Emmy is on the table on the left, so feel free to take a look at that, and thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you, Isaac. And congratulations. All right, up next, CCX Cities has been going through a transition as we move from emphasis on a show or a segment called The Connection to emphasis on the individual story and greater collaboration with our city communication coordinators. And Cities producer Rusty Ray has led this effort as a department of one. So, Rusty, what would you like to tell us?
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. And about 25 years of TV experience for me, much of that as a reporter for a commercial station in the Carolinas. And I used to go to bed really early because I had to get up early to be the morning anchor. For 8 years I did that, and my clock would go off at 2:30. And often I would awake to a text message from my buddy, who was also my source with the local school board, and he was their staff attorney. But he would text me and say, "You should have been at this meeting last night. You wouldn't believe what happened at our school board meeting." It's those kinds of sources that you build over the years. Fast forward to Tuesday night when I was getting dinner ready for my family here in Minnesota, and I get a text from my boss, and she's at the Crystal City Council meeting, and she says, "You won't believe this. There's 2 guys here who can put a fire hydrant together faster than anyone else in the state." That's how I get stories nowadays, which is great. Guess what? Tomorrow morning, I'm going to Crystal Public Works, and we're going to interview the 2 guys, have video from the city council meeting of them putting a fire hydrant together as quick as possible. That's a city story. It's a story about these 2 guys, their accomplishment. It's unique, it gets your attention, it's interesting, but it also promotes our city, Crystal in this case. That's what City Stories is. We're promoting stories that promote the city and the good things or the momentous things or the important decisions that cities have made that impact residents. Traditionally, though, now we get our story ideas through meeting quarterly with Carol in Maple Grove and the folks in Plymouth or the folks in Robbinsdale or the folks in Crystal or all of our different cities. We get our ideas, and I put to work their ideas. I say, okay, can we get this person to talk about this? Can we go with the Public Works team as they're checking whatever the case may be? That's how we get our stories. I turn them around into 2, sometimes 3, sometimes 4-minute stories that go on CCX Media. But more importantly, what we're changing, as Shannon mentioned, is that I'm trying to get the stories back to the cities as quick as possible. In Robbinsdale on Monday or Tuesday, I believe, Tuesday we were highlighting an internship program they had with a young man with special needs who completed his internship there. I believe New Hope had a similar program over the summer with some young people helping with public safety and other things. And Tuesday was that young man's last day. I went as he was calling bingo at the senior living place. I interviewed him, and then I interviewed Tim, and I had that story back to them that night so I believe they could show it at the city council meeting. Back to my old news days and working on deadline, which I really like. But something else I'm also doing, and what I want to show you here, are 2 examples of what I'm calling shorts. Now they look like reels, You know what reels are if you scroll through your phone, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Facebook. A reel might be some kind of silly music, and you might see some public works people dancing or fixing a fire hydrant. I'm not quite doing that yet. I'm not quite doing that, okay? But what I'm trying to provide is a 30-second, like a teaser, like a shorter version, vertical, like your phone is shaped, which is big change for me over all these years. And I think we have 2 examples of this. I don't know if we can play that in the back.
It's
This is
such
from
a
Maple
problem
Grove.
everywhere. There's no amount of manpower that the city could use to keep up with it.
And the reason it's called buckthorn, there's 2 leaf parts that come out and look like a deer's hooves.
After we take the big stuff out, the buckthorn really likes the sunshine. And so the seeds that have dropped, up the shoots come. And so you really have to go back the next year to take care of those. What are we leaving behind for our kids? This is just going to get worse. And it's taking over our woodlands and our forests and our wetlands. What do we want to leave behind for them?
So again, that's just a short version of a longer story I did about a citizen-led effort to try to eradicate buckthorn. I'm sure you're very familiar with that in your cities. But it shows up in your phone, it plays vertically, there's no music involved. I'm trying to stay away from that, but we're trying to just make it appear in people's news feeds organically, and so it shows, and then they can say, oh, what is that? Oh, I know that person. Oh, that's my neighborhood. And then the other version of that is a story from New Hope with their police officers getting back out on bicycles this summer for the first time. Nope. Yep. Maybe not. Same thing. Both of those stories were
when you roll up on someone, maybe just want to talk to you or ask a question, and you're sitting in your squad car, and they're standing on the sidewalk, we have that huge metal barrier between both of you. Being able to get on the bike, you get really a better physical look of the city itself and all the people that are actually kind of back in those neighborhoods. Strip malls, neighborhoods, apartment complexes, parks, doesn't matter. So it's super nice to be able just to get out of the squad car, grab your bike, and go.
Okay, so just short versions that I want to provide to the city as quickly as possible. The city can do whatever the city wants with that. Put it on social media, use the shorter version to tease the longer version in a link or something like that. That's my goal, is to provide the content that I am producing by myself to the cities as quickly as possible. It still lives on CCX Media on our channel. It still lives on CCX Media's YouTube page. It still lives in a link on ccxmedia.org under the city section. But this way, the cities don't have to link to that. The video can play right from their social media channels if they choose. That's my goal, is to turn around these story ideas that come from the cities, or in this case, my boss at a city council meeting, and promote the cities and use what we're doing to provide that video to them more quickly and in a format that they can use effectively, hopefully. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Rusty. All right, a few more items. Up next, I would be remiss if I did not mention the departure of our Create coordinator, Javier Cedillo. This is when he was out in Plymouth a few weeks ago promoting CCX Create. He left for other opportunities, and we wish him the best. We have advertised for the position. And so if you know someone that is great at volunteer management, volunteer training, please send them our way. The job posting is on our website. And finally, let's wrap up this board meeting with some holiday cheer. If you are in New Hope on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day and you turn on your television, you will see a picture of what any house looks like in New Hope, right? Fire in the fireplace, Christmas tree, and CCX Media on the television. So if you guys want to play this, this is a Yule log that we made for cities to send out holiday greetings on your Channel 16s. And so we'll have the holiday greeting and then your logo pop up in the corner. And so we created this. There's a train in the corner that you can't see. There will be a few cutaways. There's a menorah in the shot as well. So later today or sometime tomorrow, I'll be sending out a 30-second clip on what this looks like for your city. And if you want this to be on your Channel 16 on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, you can let us know. And then we will put that on there. But wait, there's more. Because viewers need more choices now on their television. You have a choice of not that Yule log, but one more. If you guys want to go ahead and roll the video. All right, this is a Yule log that will be on Channel 799 or CCX1. And we turned our news studio into a set. And we coordinated with 3 animal nonprofits to have their animals in. So these are kittens from the Itty Bitty Kitty Brigade in Maple Grove. We had guinea pigs from the Animal Humane Society in Golden Valley, and we had puppies from Can Do Canines. They were not in the studio at the same time. Their handlers really wanted to know that. So this will start airing on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, and then we'll have information on the bottom of the screen where people can learn more about these local nonprofits. And I will add that this was just a ton of fun to put together. We recorded this on MEA break, and we invited people to bring their kids or their spouses to help corral the kittens or the dogs or whatever. So we'd have 8 to 10 kittens on the set, and by the time they all flocked off the set, we would like round them up and put them back on. So, you know, television is a lot of work, but this was one of those times where it was just a lot of fun too. All the animals were well behaved, and their handlers were too. So, anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. We have food for you out in the lobby. We appreciate the time that you spend here with us, and also answering my emails and phone calls, of which you all get several of between board meetings. So there's the guinea pigs. They were a little shy. They took a little time, but they're out there. So that's our staff report, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, staff. Any other items we want to talk about? If not, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Also, be aware of the meetings in 2025. The dates are listed at the bottom. So I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no or nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.